yeah, so let us speak of the adventures of getting you ready for 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so getting you ready for 2.0.
Yeah.
Now, just so I understand, what was the actual timeline from when we first started working on it? Was it like a week turnaround or was it longer?
The time that I came up with the idea or the time that you started working on
Time that I started working on it.
a week?
Because, okay, so it was a week. I wasn't sure about that.
The time that you
So
started
there's-
working on the model, not the compositions. The compositions were like 2 or 3
I started doing the
weeks.
week before. I think it was just a week before. Because what I was doing was, after work each day, I would come home. I would go track down some public domain images,
Yeah.
and I would comp them together into these little like scenes and add a little bit of art to it and whatnot. And then each time I would do that, I would then take them into Blender and make a quick little insert with it.
Oh yeah, because his video editing, guys, by the way, is done in Blender.
Yeah, I do all my stuff in Blender pretty much. Like for video editing and like weird effects things and whatnot, stuff you'd use like After Effects for, I would use Blender.
Yeah.
And I was kind of relearning how to use it at the time. Same with GIMP. Actually, I hadn't used GIMP in years. And for my image editing to comp these inserts together. The original idea being, oh, we'll just have a couple of these and then like
Okay.
intersperse it with.
But before we go into that, what did I actually ask you?
Okay. The original ask was, Goji, can we do what we were talking about where we have the image that you use for startup and everything actually be a 3D render that moves?
Yeah,
because
'cause we
we
talked
originally
about this-
decided on that.
We talked about this when he first made it, where we
Long
were
time
gonna have
ago.
the things moving and maybe have
Yeah.
a little radio tower with a broadcast thing coming out.
Yeah, maybe like something like that.
But really, all I was looking for were
All you'd
the-
asked for was that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was the only ask. And then, so the actual scope of the project was animate that, render it, and then also add a tail and ears
Yes.
to the model and put them on wiggle bones sort of
Yeah.
thing, or bendy bones. Nothing else. There was nothing else
That
to
was
this.
my. And I said,
So,
if you could do blend shapes, that's great. But if not, don't worry about it.
yeah. It's like, okay, got it. And so I was watching a little bit of, what is it, Local 58?
Local 58.
Yeah, and I noticed that Chris Straub in his credits was mentioning using like
Like-
most of the stuff that was comped together was just public domain images and audio and video that he would then like comp together in these interesting scenes for the analog horror. I was like, okay, let's see what's available. And I started getting kind of some fun ideas of, oh, what if we do like something with a TV with a test pattern on it and it doesn't look right sort of thing. And it's like comped onto like a wooden floor or you make it kind of weird, like do a little hue shifting and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool little image. And I can't remember, was it you who brought it up or did I bring it up where we're discussing the idea of maybe having them interspersed amongst
You brought that up.
the render. Yeah, because I'd finished the render and I'd shown it, and I felt it was too short, even though it loops perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what if we have like little inserts inside of it? And then that turned into, what if we gave it like a VCR style,
Yeah.
VCR style kind of tracking loss or interference or things like that. But yeah, like wanting to know what if we did that, and so it started ballooning. And each day after work, I would come home, I would gather a couple of images and figure out how to make them work together.
Yeah.
Like trying to work within these constraints each time. And then I would put it into Blender and I would do things like have it look like the screens are flickering
Yeah.
or stuff like that. And then have it pan across the screen a little bit. Just give it a little bit of movement.
Mm-hmm.
And these turned into these little like couple second inserts that I felt were actually pretty good. I got to
like
practice
them.
a lot of skills I haven't touched in a long time. And yeah, so got how many of those? I made like 4 of those, right?
I think 4.
Yeah,
think.
4 of those. I think there were like 5, but I didn't like one of them. But anyways,
There's one you didn't like, but I think you used it anyway.
okay. But yeah, so we put these into the playback, and then like okay, play it through. I still don't like. I still don't like how short it is. So like, let's double the length and change around the order in which they show, and also have them have a little bit of like a an overlap.
Yeah.
So like it'll play and this in the area that it gets cut off, and then like the video or the render of the scene with the ethereal post would kind of pull back a little ways, but you wouldn't notice because you're coming out of an insert
Yeah.
sort of thing. And so it turns this whole thing, and finally you get what you have for the intro, outro, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so we had
And
that.
yeah, I had to learn how to use the Blender node trees to do the VCR interference effect. Like a lot of this is just me relearning how to use all these tools because I haven't touched them in years, like properly.
And that came
Aside
from the ask of, hey, can you do what we had initially talked about? It's fine
Initially
if you
thought,
can't.
yeah, yes. And so that gets put together, and then I'm looking at the time remaining. I'm like, okay, I can do the blend shapes and like the rigging and all this stuff. Then I learned how to use the new VRM plugin for
Yeah.
Blender for things like tune shading and all that, because we had issues with the shading
We did.
before on the other model.
Unlike
Stuff
the
like
Pokemon, the Pokemon outfit and the Fallout outfit.
yeah, like the Fallout outfit, like the helmet's supposed to be not look like that. Like the picture of the possum is fine, but the helmet itself is supposed to be a little more vibrant in color.
Yeah.
But it dims out because it takes the scene rendering or it's expecting there to be a light source that
Because
doesn't
VC
exist.
Face, how it has its light render, and also VRoid itself have their own like shaders that they use.
Yeah, and so ended up finding out that the new plugin for Blender for the VRMs includes the tune shaders, and I could apply them properly this time. And so I was like, oh, sweet. So I'll do some texture painting on the ears, and I'll redo these. And so I'm doing this, and then I'm like, all right, got to do the rigging. Got to make sure that they sit properly in place. I don't like how the tail's sticking out of the back. It needs to come up to the side, so I had to relearn how to reapply armatures. like it's a lot of relearning how to do stuff I used to do back in like college.
And do you want to talk
'Cause I
about
haven't-
what was actually happening in our real life while you were?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. So we get the blend shapes done, and there was Ghostie gave me like a post-it note with a couple of like I kind of want the ears to be in different positions based on emotion, and maybe tail positions as well. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll figure out how to do that.
And I was like,
And-
and if you could do a knife,
Yeah, and also maybe a knife if they're mad.
it's okay
I'm like,
if not
okay, I
though.
guess. Oh, once again, all these are like, it's okay if not, just like make it work. Meanwhile, Ghostie is working on kind of like the trailer
Yeah.
for the 2.0, and is also going to be working on their layout.
Because the first trailer, which was also going to be a lore video, was
Yeah.
incredibly body horror.
Yeah, you're describing it to me. I'm like, Ghostie, a good portion of your audience doesn't like that kind of body horror.
I was like,
like
oh, this is
like
body
where you're
horror?
like peeling off your skin and removing limbs and stuff like that. And it's like,
I
what are you
think-
doing?
I think
Stop it.
I did ask you, wait, this is body horror.
It's like, yes, yes, it is. Don't do that. So,
No, you
ended
said
up,
you said you can do this, but you'll
Yeah,
be going
you
like
can
full
do this,
horror.
But understand, you are going full horror if you do that. Like, which is okay. But if that isn't your goal, maybe rethink a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, bring it back a little bit. And also, you're running into problems where you're seeing the deadline approaching, and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm trying to do this, and I'm looking at your scope. I'm like, now's the time to cut back to things you know how to
Yeah.
do and can do with the tools you have and the time remaining.
Yeah.
So it became a kind of a lesson
In
in
scope.
replanning
Yeah.
in scope. Yeah, like cutting until it works, sort of
Mhm.
thing. Which is also body horror. No.
Which is also body horror. Yay!
Yeah, and so what should I call it? Whilst you're working on that, I was working on these lens shapes, and I was trying to figure out how do I make this tail and these ears and this knife properly animate for facial blend shapes, because if I put them all before I would do this with like this model, it's all part of the same mesh, and so
Yeah.
it would just work. But I had no way to kind of like apply it to other like meshes that aren't part of the same mesh, like the same model. And so I'm trying to figure this out. Turns out there's like a whole like driver system in Blender
Yeah.
that you can have one variable affect another. So I learned all about this in the span of like an evening.
Yeah. Because one night
And-
I went to bed, and then the next night after you came home from work, you were like, "Okay, so I did that."
I did this. Yeah. It's like, so yeah, like there was so much learning on the spot as the time is like ticking down. And then it was like it was the weekend before, wasn't it? When like I just finished the model,
Yes.
and then it was the yeah, okay.
It was on
I
Sunday
finished these-
that we first test drove the model.
Yeah, and luckily it worked immediately, and that I was so relieved that it worked, because at that point, like if you got nothing else done, you were ready for your 2.0.
Yeah. Well,
And then you showed me how far you'd gotten on the
on the layout.
on the overlay,
You didn't
and it
like
was
it.
you had a couple of boxes that were gradients and no color theory.
Well, I was trying to decide the layout, like how I wanted it laid out, like
Yeah.
blocks.
Yeah, which it's kind of like gray. It's like gray modeling or box
Yeah.
modeling, where it's like, okay, I just like here's roughly kind of how I want things laid out, and this is Saturday of the weekend before you
Yes.
do your 2.0 debut. I'm like, no, okay, I need you to get as many pictures of opossums as possible, and I
Yeah.
need you to go into Inkscape, which is also another open source
Yeah.
tool for vector art, kind of like Illustrator for Adobe.
It is the
I'm going to need you to go into Inkscape.
tool that I use most often, by the way.
Yeah. Go into Inkscape, and I need you to effectively create SVG silhouettes of
Of the
as many possums as you can. We're probably going to scrap most of them, but we need as many as possible, because these are effectively will become like an asset
You
list
told
that we
me
can
12.
use for. Yeah, I wanted like 12, because with the idea that we'd be throwing like most of them away. And I also started doing the same. I started making my own ones and like doing slight changes, like doing cutouts for eyes or things like that.
Yeah.
And in the end, we used like 3 of them, but there was a possibility we'd be using more. It's just how it ended up working out. And after we were doing that, I started building out the shapes for a layout
Yeah.
in Inkscape myself, sort of thing, and came up with kind of like the red and kind of off gold
Yeah.
colors.
Well,
And
because those are the colors that we decided would probably work best for us.
yeah, we're pulling them all out from that image, the background image of the chair,
Yeah.
like the room, and we were trying to trend more warm for your standard model. It's like, okay, we're thinking warm, we're thinking possums, we're just gonna try and like pull colors from this and like figure it out. And the result is what you see right now, but made a version of it that was a still. And then I was sitting there going, I think how other streamers do like have those really cool animated ones or whatnot are they use active effects. Well, back into Blender. So I
Yeah.
made some more elements, and it's just a simple thing with like the three dots at the bottom, like
Well, cause
lighting up
you,
over
cause,
time and then dimming out.
cause you, like you gave me the static one, and I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there going, it's not good enough. like, like I could do more. I think we can do more, and so we end up adding a little element to have animation, mainly as a way to kind of like test if it's possible.
Yeah.
And then I figured out that the output from Blender was giving us the wrong colors.
Yes.
And then I got to learn about reapplying a different color matrix using FFmpeg. like,
Mhm.
so doing it all in a terminal. And so figured that out, and that was like under the wire. Like, all right, all of this is here, and oh, I need a mask to put over the video that you're going to be using, so it can insert nicely into that kind of rounded corner
Yeah.
in the top, like how it all
And
looks there. And it's like,
and I almost went live with a lot of this because I had the intro video. I didn't. I think the only thing I didn't
Yeah.
have was the layout.
yeah,
But we had decided on the music. We had
yep. We had
decided
gone
on
searching for some.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the
Although we're
the-
still talking about changes to that potentially.
yeah, but we had like pretty much everything except for the gaming layout and the new chat overlay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I had separate scenes for them too.
Mhm.
And I almost went live on Monday with all of it. And then I caught myself. I was like, ah!
Yeah, you're like, oh, wait. Not yet. Yeah, but yeah, so we kind of get it all done under the wire and in. And what we haven't mentioned is during this time period, I was in the process of changing jobs
Yeah.
completely, like from
Yeah.
my school division job to a college.
Yeah, so by the way, as far back, almost as far back as Mauser talking in chat about changing
Getting his
jobs.
new job, yeah, is the same time I got my my contract, my approval letter.
Right.
Yeah. And so it was like, so we've known about this change from back then. And so in the background, I was offboarding from school division and getting prepared to
Onboarding.
onboard for the college. In fact, the Friday I was my first day with the college.
Yeah, my debut day was your first day. So that Tuesday
Yeah.
when I was like, yeah, they're doing a, end of year tech, it was Goji's going away.
It was my going away party. Yeah. And so it was crunch on top of crunch of a different kind because I was trying to prepare the division for losing a tech and they're not refilling my position.
Yeah.
So they're permanently going to be down a tech, at which we were already stretched so thin. And so it was just stress the whole way through. And then finally, like, the payoff at the end is like, oh,
Yeah.
thank goodness, it all worked.
I think what you said was this is type 2 fun. This is solidly type 2 fun.
The solidly type 2 fun, the kind that sucks in the moment, but afterwards you're like, yes, we did the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, it was so stressful getting it all dealt with, because when you showed me your box modeling of your layout, and I realized that we had no time left, and you're nowhere near close.
Yeah,
I was like,
because I had a lot of ideas and I didn't just like
you didn't lock in.
I didn't
Yeah.
lock in.
Yeah, and so it's been a good training exercise for if you
been-
have projects in the future.
It's been a great exercise for me, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah,
kind
and
of
they'll only get
understand the scope of what I want.
Better after, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being able to articulate it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so, yeah, all that finished, and afterwards I'm like, we need another stinger transition. We need another stinger transition. We need all
And I was
this,
like,
we're gonna need
no,
this.
no, we're good.
We need a different BRB screen. We need a like. And so, some of those are in progress.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
didn't want
I
you
think
to.
I'm most of the way through a stinger transition.
Yeah, that you haven't showed me.
Yeah, I'll show you it later. I finally got it to the point where the elements can be mostly animated, and I'm leaning heavily on that driver system because holy crap, it is so useful for making things move in a very uniform and predictable way. If they just lock things into drivers based on other things, it's just been so useful. And so yeah, it was also really good to kind of go back to some of the stuff I used to do. This is the stuff I actually went to school for.